In the heart of West Africa, a young leader stood against the most sophisticated economic warfare machine ever assembled, designed to crush nations, topple governments, and force entire populations into submission. Burkina Faso, a landlocked country with a history of resilience, found itself targeted by a calculated strategy to paralyze its economy and military capabilities. The architects of this plan, seated in sterile conference rooms thousands of miles away in Brussels, sipped expensive coffee and exchanged calculated whispers. Their decision was clear: isolate Burkina Faso, humiliate its defiant president, Ibrahim Traoré, and break the spirit of a people who dared to dream of true independence. The weapon wasn't bullets or bombs but something far more insidious: economic strangulation. Cut off their funding streams, the lead strategist declared, his manicured fingers tapping against an imported Italian leather portfolio. Block defense imports. Freeze spare part shipments. Prohibit technology transfers. The room nodded in synchronized agreement, confident that this playbook, perfected in places like Libya and Iraq, would yield the same inevitable result: submission. The strategy was simple in its cruelty. By choking Burkina Faso's access to resources, the nation's military would falter, radar systems would go dark, vehicles would break down, and ammunition would run dry. The young president, barely in his 30s, would be forced to his knees, a cautionary tale for any leader who dared to defy the global order. Western intelligence agencies and defense contractors watched with smug certainty, their boardrooms filled with dismissive chuckles at the idea of an African nation challenging their technological dominance. "They can barely maintain the equipment we sell them," one executive scoffed at a cocktail party, his words echoed by others who saw Africa as a market to exploit, not a source of innovation. But beneath the dusty streets of Ouagadougou, in a network of cramped, dimly lit workshops and converted basements, something extraordinary was taking shape. These spaces, dismissed by foreign consultants as primitive, were alive with the hum of ingenuity. Fluorescent lights flickered, casting shadows on walls lined with salvaged electronics and hand-drawn engineering diagrams. The air was thick with the smell of soldering flux and determination. Here, in conditions that would make Silicon Valley executives recoil, a revolution was being born. Ibrahim Traoré, a leader who understood that true power comes not from what others grant but from what you create, walked these underground facilities. His footsteps echoed on concrete floors that had never seen a red carpet or hosted a diplomatic reception. What he saw was invisible to his adversaries: genius in its purest form. The engineers weren't graduates of elite institutions like MIT or Cambridge. They were farmers who had mastered the art of repairing tractors with non-existent spare parts, mechanics who kept decades-old vehicles running through sheer stubbornness, and women who taught themselves programming with borrowed textbooks, coding on laptops held together with tape and powered by car batteries wired to rooftop solar panels. In these workshops, desperation and brilliance collided to produce the first prototype of what would become a game-changer. They called it Sira, meaning the path forward, in the local language. It was a drone, cobbled together from scavenged materials, dismantled car batteries for power, plastic tubing from abandoned construction sites for the frame, and a camera lens repurposed from a discarded French surveillance system. Electronic components were harvested from old radios, broken televisions, and cracked smartphones, a technological archaeology that defied every expectation. The paint job was uneven, applied by hand in a poorly ventilated garage. The wiring was exposed, held together with makeshift solutions that would never pass a safety inspection. But when Sira's rotors began to spin, and it lifted into the African sky for the first time, something shifted. The test flight lasted only 3 minutes. The range was a mere 2 kilometers, and the camera footage was grainy, occasionally cutting out. Yet every person in that underground workshop knew they had witnessed history. They had built something deemed impossible, created capability where none was supposed to exist. President Traoré received the report in his modest office, a stark contrast to the opulent chambers of his international counterparts. No gold-plated fixtures or imported marble adorned his space, just a simple wooden desk crafted by local artisans, walls lined with well-worn books, and a single photograph of his grandmother, who had taught him that dignity could never be granted or taken by others. Mr. President, the lead engineer said, barely containing his excitement, Sira is functional. We can fly. We can observe. We can record. Traore didn't celebrate or call for a press conference. He simply nodded and asked, what do we need to make 10 more? Word of the successful test spread through Burkina Faso's underground networks like wildfire, not through official channels or diplomatic cables, but through text messages, whispered conversations, and shared photographs of Sira in flight, passed from phone to phone across the continent. In the gleaming offices of Western defense contractors, the initial reaction was laughter. Africans building drones, they scoffed at industry conferences. The joke writes itself. But in the secretive corridors of intelligence agencies, a different conversation was beginning. Satellite imagery analysts detected unusual heat signatures from unremarkable buildings in Ouagadougou. Radio intercept specialists picked up new frequencies used for flight communications. Most alarmingly, optical reconnaissance satellites captured images of small, unidentified aircraft operating in Burkina Faso's airspace. A classified report landed on desks in Langley, London, and Paris, its language brief but chilling. Unusual aerial activity detected near sensitive installations in West Africa. Source appears to be domestically manufactured unmanned aircraft systems. Capabilities unknown. Recommend immediate assessment. France, the former colonial power still stinging from Burkina Faso's push for independence, acted first. A delegation of trade representatives arrived in Ouagadougou within days, their diplomatic passports masking their true purpose. They came with offers of renewed cooperation, promises of investment, and hints at lifting the sanctions they had helped impose. But their real mission was to infiltrate the workshops and understand what was happening. The lead French operative, posing as a cultural attaché but trained in technological espionage, arranged a meeting with one of the drone engineers, a 23-year-old named Abu. Brilliant with electronics and supporting a family of 6 on meager wages, Abu seemed like the perfect target for recruitment. The meeting took place in a café that mimicked a Parisian atmosphere with mismatched furniture and overpriced coffee. The operative, speaking flawless English to signal his sophistication, slid a business card across the table. "You're wasting your talents here," he told Abu. "Europe has real laboratories, proper funding. You wouldn't have to work with salvaged components or pray your equipment doesn't fail." He painted a seductive picture of research facilities with unlimited budgets, international recognition, and a life free from the constraints of economic warfare. Abu listened politely, sipping his tea as the operative continued. But something in the man's tone betrayed his true intent. This wasn't about recognizing Abu's talent, it was about neutralizing it. The offer was clear: join us, and your knowledge comes with you. Stay here, and you'll waste your life building toys in a basement. "I appreciate the offer," Abu said, his voice steady. He pulled out his cracked phone, its case held together with tape, and opened a video file. The footage showed Sira in flight, its camera capturing clear images of the countryside, its movements precise despite its primitive guidance systems. This, Abu said, was built by people who know the difference between dependency and partnership, between innovation and imitation. He stood, leaving money for his tea. "Thank you for the coffee, and for helping me understand why we're building these drones in the first place." The operative watched him leave, then made a call that escalated the situation. Within hours, intelligence agencies were reassessing Burkina Faso's capabilities. This wasn't a hobbyist project. It was a systematic challenge to technological monopolies that had defined global power dynamics for decades. Meanwhile, in the underground workshops, the work continued. The success of Sira unleashed a creativity suppressed for generations. Engineers who had been told they were consumers, not creators, discovered the power of innovation. The second prototype, Sira 2.0, incorporated better battery management, improved aerodynamics, and enhanced cameras capable of real-time transmission over greater distances. The real breakthrough came with navigation. Commercial GPS systems were vulnerable to jamming, a weakness that could render even advanced drones useless in contested airspace. The solution emerged from an unexpected source, a former mathematics teacher, forced to drive a taxi after education funding cuts. Working on a salvaged laptop, she developed algorithms that combined multiple navigation methods. Satellite data, inertial guidance, visual landmarks, and magnetic field measurements. If one system failed, the others compensated. It was an elegant solution, the kind defense contractors would charge millions to develop, created by someone who had been discarded by the system. President Traoré visited the workshops regularly, often arriving unannounced with no security detail, grabbing tea from the communal pot and sitting among the engineers. When the navigation breakthrough was explained, he asked for a demonstration. On a clear evening, with military personnel monitoring the airspace, Sira 2.0 launched from a makeshift runway in an abandoned lot. The flight plan tested its ability to navigate without GPS, using visual landmarks like distinctive buildings and river curves. As GPS jamming was simulated, the drone seamlessly switched to visual guidance, its camera locking onto pre-programmed checkpoints. The room fell silent, save for the hum of electronics, as the screens showed steady flight paths and high-definition footage. When Sira landed, the workshop erupted in celebration, not just for the drone, but for what it represented, proof that African dependency was a myth, a narrative constructed to maintain exploitation. The real test came unexpectedly. A convoy of unauthorized vehicles crossed Burkina Faso's northern border in the early hours, a probing action to test defensive capabilities. Unknown to the intruders, Sira 3.0, equipped with extended flight time, improved stealth, and autonomous operation, had been patrolling the area. Its sensors detected the vehicle's heat signatures, and its AI classified them as potentially hostile. In the command center, the duty officer watched crystal-clear footage of the convoy, complete with vehicle identifications and projected routes. The image quality rivaled systems costing millions, achieved with equipment built from scraps. Traoré was awakened with the news. Options? He asked, studying the footage. We can track them indefinitely, the operator replied. They don't know we're watching. We can document their movements, record their communications, and follow them wherever they go. Traoré considered the alternative. The drone's targeting systems were functional, capable of engaging the convoy. But he understood the bigger picture. No, he said firmly. We observe. We document. We let them know we can see them, but we don't engage unless they pose an immediate threat. This wasn't just about military capability, it was about information warfare, about proving Burkina Faso could see and record what others assumed they couldn't. For 6 hours, Sira tracked the convoy, capturing vehicle movements, personnel changes, and equipment deployments. The footage was undeniable, a powerful statement of capability. In the days that followed, Traoré's government released select images to diplomatic channels, a subtle message to the world: Burkina Faso was watching, and it was no longer dependent on others' technology or permission. The shock waves were felt in capitals across 3 continents. Intelligence agencies scrambled to reassess their assumptions, while defense contractors grappled with the reality that a nation they had dismissed had outmaneuvered them with ingenuity and resolve. In the underground workshops, the work continued. Each new prototype built on the last, incorporating lessons learned and pushing the boundaries of what was possible. The engineers, once told they could never compete, were now redefining what competition meant. Across Africa, similar projects began to emerge, inspired by Burkina Faso's example. The name Ibrahim Traoré appeared in classified briefings, not as a target to be humiliated, but as a symbol of a new era. One where the human spirit, armed with determination and ingenuity, could challenge even the most powerful systems of control.